When he got there, he realized it was their flashlight laying at the head of the dock. He picked it up and started to walk slowly down the dock towards the boat. When he got to the boat, his stomach went up into his chest. His throat clenched up. He was in shock. Robin's body was sprawled out of the boat. There was a single stab wound to her chest. She was dead. Every husband's worst nightmare had become reality for Bradley Warren. The evidence will show that the series of arguments that began on August 5th ended with Robin Warren's murder that night. When she proceeded to go out in the cool, dark night, she thought she was alone. But she wasn't. The defendant was there. And he was primed for one final attack. With no one there to defuse him, the yelling started again, and it quickly became violent. The defendant overpowered his sister. He was in control. In an effort to free herself, she tore nails deep into the flesh of his arms. This set the bomb off. He was enraged. He hit her in the head. And as she was laying there dazed, he saw a knife. He grabbed the knife, and in one precise movement, drove it into her heart. He murdered Robin Warren. He murdered his own sister. Now, during this trial, you'll hear that when Alex Moore went to bed, he did not have scratches on his arms. When the victim's body was examined, the defendant's DNA was found underneath her fingernails. When Alex Moore was questioned about the scratches on his arms, he had no explanation. He simply said, "I don't know, and I don't care." Bradley Warren will tell you that when he went to look for his wife, Alex Moore wasn't in his room. In fact, the sheets hadn't even been pulled back off the bed. The bed had never even been used. And despite searching the property and the house for his wife, he never saw Alex Moore. You'll also hear that when authorities arrived on scene, Alex Moore was covered in blood. He was covered in blood despite, as you will see in evidence, the fact that he washed himself free of Robin Warren's blood earlier that night. He had 2 interactions with her dead body that night. So where was Alex Moore all this time? Why wasn't he in his room? Where did the deep cuts on his arms come from? And why was he still covered in blood after having washed himself free of blood earlier that night? I'm going to ask you to think about those questions as evidence is presented in this trial. And the evidence presented will prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Alex Moore murdered Robin Warren. I tell you again, this man is a time bomb. And when he went off, the results were absolutely horrific. When he went off, he murdered Robin Warren. When he went off, he murdered his own sister. And he's still sitting right here. He's still a time bomb. And he is still very capable of going off. At the end of this trial, we're going to ask you to defuse this time bomb by finding him guilty of murder.